Hello and welcome back to Friday Minis. As promised during our computer security episode, let us now take a look at SQL injection, which is of course a method in which you can use to compromise a database. As we've described in the episode itself, SQL is actually just a plain text string that actually goes out to the database, and the database performs what you've written there and gives you the result back. Most of the time, SQL queries come from user submissions like forms, and in fact, for the duration of this episode, we're going to be using the example of a login screen. So a login screen looks something like this. It will populate an SQL statement that looks something like this. And yeah, in theory, we can just directly substitute the values from the fields into the actual query itself. Except if we do that, that actually leaves us open to an SQL injection attack. To fully understand what would happen in this case, let us first take a look at the statement itself and try to understand it. Now, the statement starts off with select count star from users, so that means we want to look at a table called users. Well, the table probably has quite a lot of columns, but we don't really care about that because we just want to count the number of rows from this particular table that matches the following conditions. The first is that the user ID equals to the user ID entered by the user, whereas the password equals the password entered by the user. So you can see how this statement works. If the user has entered a valid username password combination, then the count will be 1 because, well, such an entry is found in a table. However, if the user has entered a wrong username or password, then you would expect the count to be 0 because, well, it doesn't match anything. So after the database query has been made, we'll get our result back, and our result is a number. So what we can do later on in our server scripting language, whatever we're using, if the count returned is 0, that means the user has probably entered something wrong. Well, we'll show a message. We'll tell them that their login attempt has failed. Otherwise, we'll let the user through because they have entered a correct combination. So that's all well and good. On paper, this should work out just fine. However, if the user enters the following set of input, well, we substitute them into the statement itself, and we see that the whole meaning of the statement has changed. So we want to search for columns that have this username and have this password, or for that column 1 equals to 1. And you realize that in any case, 1 always equals to 1. And what that means is for every single row of the table, this statement actually evaluates the true. Every single row of that table will actually contribute to the count. So when we move on to the authentication logic itself, well, you'll see that it actually falls into the else clause because the count will return a very large number, which basically means let them through, they actually have been authenticated. And that is the danger of SQL injection. To work around this problem, we use what is known as prepared statements. In a prepared statement, basically the SQL portion, without all the inputs substituted in, gets compiled first. Then, when a user input comes along, they are substituted as data into the statement itself. Because the statement has been pre-compiled, we know for sure that none of the input will be executed. We know for sure that that is entirely data, and we will never confuse it with the SQL written by the programmer. And that is how we protect ourselves against SQL injection. Well, that's basically all there is for this extremely long episode of Friday Minis. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, you're watching 0612 TV. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked this video, consider checking out the rest of my work on my channel. Alternatively, you may be interested in a playlist of all the other episodes of Friday Minis. If you'd like to show me some monetary support, I am on Patreon. You can find a link to my campaign in the video description. Of course, you can simply like this video or leave a comment. I'll be sure to respond as soon as I can. To keep in touch with my future uploads, do subscribe to this channel. And for even more updates, check out the official Twitter account for this channel at 0612TV. Thank you for your support.